All right, John, I wanted to explain this percentile thing to you really quickly, but I want to finish off with the third quartile before I do that. So let's see, if we look at our picture down here, this is the first quartile, second quartile, and third quartile. The third quartile is the middle, or the median, of the upper half. And what I mean by that is when the median splits everything right down the middle, this Q3 divides that top half right in the middle. So it's the middle point of that top half of the information. And it means that 25% of all the points that we have lie above this number. That means what percent lies below it? That means that 75% lies below it. Okay. So that's kind of just explaining to you where those numbers lie in terms of everything else. But the most important part is actually the percentile. So the first quartile is the 25th percentile. And another place that you would have heard the word percentile is maybe if you took the SATs and you got your scores back and it said that you scored in the 80th percentile. And that means that you scored better than 80% of all of your classmates. If you scored in the 80th percentile, that means that you're all the way up here. That's the 80th percentile, meaning you scored better than 80%. How many scored above you? 20% scored above you. Alright, so Q1, the first quartile, is the 25th percentile, meaning that this person scored better than 25%. That's not a very good score. You really don't want that to be your SAT score at all. So what do you think the second quartile is? The second quartile is the 50th percentile. And you can actually look at it by looking at the number that lies below. Percentile. Q2 is the 50th percentile, meaning that if you got in the 50th percentile, that means that you scored better than 50% of all of the kids who took that test. Okay, because this is 50% down here, so you scored better than 50%, but 50% scored better than you. So then Q3, you look at what percent lies below it. Q3 is the 75th percentile. And that's really good. If you got that as an SAT score, that's awesome. That means that you scored better than 75% of the kids who took that test. But 25% of the kids scored better than you, but that's fine. Alright, so hopefully that helps just a little bit to figure out Q1, Q2, and Q3. And if you take a look in your calculator, you can actually see, this is still the information from the previous question, but if I scroll down, remember it tells us what the minimum number was, it tells us what the maximum, but in between that, you see Q1 and Q3. It says median right here because we really refer to it as median, but it's actually also the second quartile. So this is the first quartile, the second quartile, and the third quartile. So the calculator calculates all that stuff for you. It figures out what the median is, and then it looks at the lower half of the information, and it figures out what that median is, and it says that's Q1. Then it looks at the upper half of the information, figures out what that median is, and that's Q3. If you've ever seen box and whisker plots before, that's what box and whisker plots are. It's actually Q1, Q2, and Q3. So box and whisker plots, they're normally on a line like that, and they obviously have, numbers listed out, but it goes from the minimum to the maximum So those numbers, say like 2 and 10, would be listed right there. And then it has a box and a whiskers, and it looks like this. And we're not actually going to use that in this chapter, but I just want to explain to you where that stuff comes from. It always looks something like this. And this number right here is always the median, which is Q2. And this line right here represents Q1. And that line right there represents Q3. So if you ever needed to make a box and whiskers plot, all you needed to do was type in the information, and your graphing calculator would give you every single point on that information that you needed. So for the question that we just did, if I were to graph this, my minimum would be 56, my Q1 would be 73, my Q2 would be 78, my Q3 would be 82, and my max is an 86. And obviously that's not, listed correctly on the number line. It'd probably be slid just a little bit more this way, but that's okay. All right, and then the last thing that you can't really see up here anymore because I wrote all over it is the last thing that I want to talk about, which is interquartile range. So we've heard the word range before. Range typically, well, I mean, in terms of like graphing, the range means all the y values, but the range also just means the minimum, like the distance between the minimum and the maximum. So just the range by itself means the max minus the min. That's just range. But then we're introducing this new thing called interquartile range. Interquartile range. And you are going to be asked to find both of these on the test that's coming up for this chapter. So the range just means the max minus the min. The interquartile range, actually, instead of looking all the way from the minimum to the maximum, it only wants you to look this smaller distance right here. So the interquartile range, we can find that by doing Q3 minus Q1. And luckily, both those numbers are given to us on the calculator right there. Okay, so I know that that was a lot of information. If you have to go back and listen to that again, it might help, but there's a lot of information that we just discussed. So let's see how we use this. Do model problems 492 to 493. So in your green, not your green book, not your small book, in your workbook, if you open up to page 492, oh my goodness, stop it. Okay, on page 492 at the bottom, there's these model problems. And if you have your book open up, that would probably help a lot better so that you can see what we're doing too. So, among the numerous awards received, Michael Jordan has been named one of the 50th greatest players in NBA history. The table below contains the average number of points scored per game by Michael Jordan during his NBA career. Determine to the nearest tenth the mean, median, and mode Never thought that cursive would actually come in handy. Also find the first quartile, so Q1, the third quartile, and the interquartile range. So we're going to use all those pieces of information and we're going to put it in our calculator. So this might be a little bit confusing just because the table that it's giving us has two different columns and it has the year and the points per game. But I'm not going to actually type in the year into my calculator because it doesn't really care what year it is. It just wants to know what the points are. We're just concerned with the points. So in list 1, I'm just going to go through and list out all those points per game. Now, I will kind of emphasize the point that on this test, a lot of what you're going to be expected to do is based on typing numbers into your calculator. And if you type in one number incorrectly, you're going to get the question wrong. So it's really easy because you don't actually have to do the math for these questions, but you need to be careful when you're typing these in. So just please go slow, especially when you're taking that test, and be careful. So I have 28.2, 22.7, 37.1. And actually, I can type these on my keypad, so 35, 32.5, 33.6, 31.5, 30.1, 32.6, 26.9, 30.4, 29.6, 28.7, 22.9, and 20. Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so I have 15 numbers that I typed in, and there's 15 down there, so we're good. So let's figure out what the mean, median, mode, and all this stuff is. So we're going to go to Stat, Calc, and we're only doing one variable, statistics, just like always. We need to tell our calculator that our information is in list 1 and hit enter. The median, also known as X bar, is the first one that's listed, and it wants all these numbers to the nearest tenth. So the median is 29.5. I'm sorry, the mean. The median is listed down here, 30.1. The mode is the only number that's not in our calculator. We actually have to go back to the list and check to see if any of those numbers repeated. Some of them are really close to each other, but I don't see any that actually repeat and are exactly identical to each other. So this is no mode. Q1 is listed on our calculator, which is 26.9. And Q3 is also listed on our calculator, 32.6. And the inner quartile range, not just the range, the inner quartile range is Q3 minus Q1. So, because I already have them written down, I can do 32.6 minus 26.9. Hit enter, and my inner quartile range is 5.7. Okay? So that was pretty easy. Choosing the appropriate statistical measures. If the mean, the median, and the mode are all averages, does it matter which one you choose to represent the middle? Because these are all measures of central tendency. Remember, these are all the measures of the middle. So does it matter which one you use? Well, yeah, of course it matters. If you are the manager of a shoe store, and you want to, order a bunch of stuff for your store, are you gonna look at the mean, the median, or the mode? Well, if you took a look at the mean of all of the shoe sizes, that doesn't really make any sense for you to find the mean of all the shoe sizes, because then you're gonna get a decimal. It would, however, make sense for you to use the mode, because you would want to order the mode or the most number of sizes that people typically order. So things do depend on which question. You want to use different things for different questions. I'm not going to do that one, and this is homework number 106. Alright, and I'm going to stop right now and then continue on to more stuff.